Oh, thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you.
Yourself. It's all good.
Okay. So I was just ready to shift into like a new top, a new topic and a new book. And then I had a lot of different thoughts. I actually would just be curious just by show of hands. I'm like toying with two different thoughts right now. One of them is to, as soon as we finish this next chapter, one of them is to do the book of the Orchot Tzadikim, which is translated as the Path of the Righteous. It's a Musar Sefer. It would bring in it's text from over like hundreds of years ago, but it brings in phenomenal ideas of similar to what we've been focusing on, but obviously it's a new book, so it's different, but very much on a self-development through a spiritual lens. It's all the different character traits, how we learn them, how we know about them, how we refine them, how we are in tune with them. So that's like one approach. And then the other thing that I just keep toying with, going back and forth with, is do we go back to our traditional weekly Parsha class? Those are like the two ideas that I'm kind of toying around with. I would just be curious, just by show of hands. Good morning. Just by show of hands, like how many of you would rather do a text and do more of a Musar study versus I'm gonna ask you on Zoom also to just weigh in. Yeah, let me see your hands for the Musar study text and a weekly Parsha. And then we have just those who just don't care. You decide.
First, what was the self-development?
Yeah, they'll both be everything in this class will be self-development always. It's always self-development. One of them is Orchot Tzadikim, which is like it's a text and it goes through the different, literally like they're called sha'arim, the gates, and they walk through all the different gates, the gates of humility, the gates of trust, the gates of patience, they get all those. And then one of them is more just like going with the weekly parsha. Okay, so we're gonna continue in the Orchot Tzadikim starting from the next time. You are welcome to buy the book or not. When I come in next time and teach it, I will bring the book to show you. There's many. And as I like to do, I will be quoting a lot I'll be bringing in the book and reading from that as we go kind of through the book. Okay.
Where we send it out.
So I can send you the link beforehand. Yeah, absolutely. So I really felt like, there's some in here that I just feel like we don't necessarily have to learn in class, but this one really was one last chapter that I did want to get to, still in the book of Strive for Truth. We've been in this for a bit of time. But this one is about the topic of the individual versus society. So we left off before our Kislev talk. Good morning. So happy you're here. We left off before our Kislev talk. We spoke about the power of free will. That was really what we were discussing. And it is so important. Good morning. Do we have enough chairs? Wow, Baruch Hashem.
There's a bunch here.
Despite the rain, I'm so grateful.
Yeah. 2 hours.
We were making fun of the delay. A lot of fun. I mean, like it's rain.
Rain, still late.
Still late.
Oh my.
We were making
Was it called last night? Remember.
By the way, I will say that the whole concept of free will is going to beautifully transfer into the whole premise of the Orchot Tzadikim, because it is the whole premise of we are constantly in control of our actions, of our traits, of the way, like that's the whole idea. Like that's really what we're going to be using. Okay, so here we're going to be really understanding an interesting perspective, and I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are as we read through it. We're going to pause, and I would love to hear your thoughts. But the difference between the individual, us as an individual, me as my own little world, and society around us. We're supposed to, the way that the Jewish lens always tells us is that we have to view ourselves as if we are a whole world. Each person is considered an olam maleh, an entire world. And at the same time, we know that our whole world is also part of an entire world. So it's almost like holding these two at the same time, like knowing that my own person is one whole world while also operating with a whole nother world. And when we think about that other world, it's not just the physical world that we live in, it's the whole society that we live in. And how do we jive these two? And what does Judaism tell us about these two? And what's the way that we navigate going through life as me, as an individual, versus the society that we live in? And mind you, society also depends on, well, which society, right? My husband had a class assignment that he had to do where he had to interview somebody from a different culture, a different society, right? So he asked me to be his note taker for this. He's like, you don't really help me so much with my schoolwork. This is really a good opportunity for you to help. Can you please take my notes? So I did, and it was actually so fascinating to listen to this person that he was interviewing, because what a totally different upbringing, completely different world, completely different standards, completely different norms, completely different society. Okay, so let's start reading and understand what he's trying to teach us over here. In human life, both in its inner and outer aspects, we find two different elements: the individual and the social. From the individualistic viewpoint, the human being lives for himself and cares for himself, both as regards his physical needs and as regards the responsibility that he feels for his spiritual welfare. From the communal point of view, he feels responsibility towards the wider public. He perceives himself as part of some large, inclusive grouping, such as the human race, or some partial group, such as a nation, and not as a completely independent identity. Okay? If only one of these two tendencies were present in any person, that person would hardly be human. Without some sense of social feeling, a person would behave like a wild animal. And worse, on the other hand, without individuality, there would be no personal ambition, whether in physical or spiritual matters. Human beings would have no more personality than ants, among which the individual hardly exists other than as a member of the society. So this is the way he introduces the topic. Before we even go any further, does anybody have any thoughts about this introduction? Any thoughts about this? Have you ever thought about this? Has this ever been something that you've thought about? Okay.
But does it tie into that free will?
Everything ties together. Yes.
Because you said it'd be if you didn't make choices, you'd just be playing
So for sure it's tying into free will, but there's something bigger here that he's trying to introduce us to. Okay? But of course, everything ties back to free will. Everything. In the clip that I put, yeah.
I think the first part to me seems pretty obvious that we need to be part of society, but I mean, the part about thinking about that we would all be like ants if we didn't have a little more ambition is kind of cool.
Yeah, and remember that when we started this first chapter, the first entire chapter that we learned was all about ambition. Do you remember that? It feels like a long time ago, but it was all about what ambition is and how we kind of redefined the whole concept of ambition. We started looking at it differently.
Something.
Yeah.
Isn't it the Ten Commandments in the beginning? Start with that.
What? Which one?
To be a human being, not to steal, not to lie, not to. This is the basic.
Okay, good.
And then, yeah, and then it's come, they open it more and more to details.
Okay, good. But I don't think it's necessarily even talking about being a human being. It's talking about the individuality of a human being and how that's going to fit into society.
So
Okay.
they give you borders.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah.
You asked what it made us think of it.
Yes.
Made me think of the book Lord of the Flies.
Yes.
Like in high school. but
Yes.
That's what it reminds, whenever I hear of individual versus.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. Okay, great.
But I don't think that the author's saying that they're at war with
No.
each other. They're at peace with each
Yeah.
other. That the
We're gonna see how they fit in.
The inner and the outer, the individual and society, that they have to be part of the same. And I think that it mimics nature, but we're the only ones, I think, that are aware of that we are a little society, a neighborhood, then a town, and then a community, all up to the world, and then the universe. And the further we go, the bigger it is. But we're only just part of a whole, and yet we control these little pieces. So they have to be in balance.
Yeah. No, that's very well said. I sometimes have had that thought that you're like, as far as I know, we're the only ones that are aware of this. Like, you do sometimes wonder, like, Do ants have their whole other, like, is there like a whole nother world that I'm missing out on? Like that the ants are like totally privy to that I have no idea, or like animals or whatever else it is? I don't know. It's just an interesting thought. What?
I was thinking Seinfeld thinks so. Isn't that
Oh.
the
I don't know.
Oh,
What is that?
no, was it the bee movie?
That's
Oh,
what
the
it
bee
says.
movie,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, because they have their whole
Yeah,
other world. Exactly. Yeah.
Laura?
Okay. Yes. Sorry.
People that have been on safaris.
Yeah.
I've never been, but
Oh.
people talk about the groups and the societies and the behaviors. and
Fascinating.
How humbling it is, because there's a whole world out there that we're not privy to.
Yeah, it definitely humbling is a great word. I've only seen videos. I know that when my parents went a couple years ago to a safari in South Africa, they said it was like one of the most eye-opening experiences. Yeah, completely. You have been? Yeah. But I think what I'm saying is like, what do they feel? Like, they don't, I don't think animals feel the same way as us, that they realize this. I don't think they realize that.
Or even
Yeah.
if they do feel the same way, they don't have the abilities that
Correct.
we have as human beings.
Correct.
Outside of that.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So the whole of creation functions like a huge machine, all of whose parts work on and with one another. This is all certainly true in an external sense. All the parts of the world are mutually necessary and together maintain the world in its decreed order. It is true also in the inner spiritual sense. Everything in the world serves the unified purpose, but still, each individual organism feels its independent existence and seems to pursue its own ends. So exactly what Rachel is saying is that they work together, but almost like they're different pieces, right? So you have the individual existence while all of the machine is running and you're a part of it. There's also this individual organism, and that individual organism, different people are pulled in different ways. Every single one is wired differently. The bee collects the nectar as food for its own hive. It knows nothing of the fact that by doing this, it helps pollinate the plants. A human being is busy selling his merchandise for his own profit. He rarely has in mind the fact that from a higher viewpoint, his function is the distribution of goods among the wider public. What purpose can we discern in this fact that the world is based on these two conflicting tendencies, each of which is nevertheless essential? If we were created to live as social beings, then why were we given such an extremely powerful and eradicable individuality? If each human being is a world in himself, why was he not given a world to himself without responsibilities to others and obstruction by others? So what do you think? If there's so much that we have to focus on an individual, then why were we not just created on like mini islands that each individual has his own little world? Yeah.
Because each of us have a soul and we're given a purpose and a uniqueness. Each individual has a uniqueness
Okay.
that they bring to the world, and they are able to share that. And like you said, to bring the parts together, I think of like maybe a puzzle,
Okay, good.
when you bring the pieces together to make a whole.
Okay, good. Good.
Also, how do you know you're unique if you're not with others?
Okay, good.
I mean, you're not unique unless you are compared to others.
Okay. Okay, very, very well said. Like so you think you're unique, but if you're not with others, who would say you're unique?
We're all part of cogs of the wheel, and like looking around this class, we're all here for a different purpose, but to work together, learn differently, take each thing that you say and move it forward in whatever way we can.
Okay.
Who we are and who we need to be or can be, or what we're trying to, round the edges instead of having all the sharp faces.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Did you have
I
your
was
hand?
gonna go.
Okay. Same idea?
Same concept.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful.
No, sister.
So, yeah, exactly. So he's going to introduce even a deeper concept over here. All of what you said is true. He's going to give this one overarching theme, which perhaps is a little bit of a different lens than you would have thought it through, through that lens, but it really is the same idea. So he says that we can discern in all of this, there's some kind of major fundamental purpose that's going on, obviously, right? And he says the human being was created not only to fulfill himself, but also to influence others, to receive and to give. This is one of the senses in which we can understand what is meant by man being created in the image of God. Okay, so here's where we're starting to get into what his point is. What does it mean? We all know that we're told that when God created mankind, we were created B'Tselem, which means in the form of Elohim, in the form of God. What does this mean? So there's a lot to be said on this topic of being formed in the image of God. But what he's saying over here is that the good midot, the good character traits, which were created in man in potential, resemble the divine midot through which God reveals himself to his creatures. Meaning that within us, right, there's some kind of like a mirror, that what we're looking at is really these midot. This is something that we've mentioned before, but the midot with which God operates the world with, right? And when we're looking into that mirror of like, what am I looking at? Ideally, what we should be trying to match up to is this refined human that aligns with those beautiful images and character traits of which God has created the world. Remember, God is perfect, okay? We are not perfect. So when we talk about being created in the image of God, we're not talking about looking at a perfect human being. In fact, we are created as very imperfect human beings. And the goal is that when we're looking in an internal mirror in ourselves, when we're looking at ourselves, when we're analyzing ourselves, we're now able to see something that calls for more. It's almost like there's a reflection of something, that we're looking at a divine self, that we're seeing something bigger, something greater, something more, right? Like there's even more in me. There's so much greater, right? One of the reasons it originally started from the Mel Robbins high five, I took that idea and I said it to my Metamorphosis crew, that I want you to say something good to yourself every day when you look in the mirror. You are familiar with Mel Robbins high five? Yeah, she says like high five yourself in the mirror every day. Like give yourself a high five. What is the purpose of that? You're supposed to be your biggest cheerleader from a very simple way. Just like say hello, you know? And then I took that idea and I said to my little tweens, and I said, I want you to write a positive affirmation in the mirror, and I want you to read it to yourself every day. So they're so cute. They're writing all these things. And when I do the challenges, I also do with them. On a much deeper level, when you're looking at that mirror, when you're giving yourself the high five, what are we really telling ourselves? Don't see your flaws. Don't see your imperfections. See what you're really designed for. One of the women on our trip to Israel was in the bathroom, and she made some kind of comment to herself out loud, looking in the mirror, something about her looking yuck. She didn't like the way she looked. She made like some kind of comment. And Pamela Clayman, who, if you know her, you know her. If you don't know her, you don't know her. She is
Larger than life.
a larger than life personality. Even the way she looks, she's very exotic. She's very
Like the Queen of Sheba who comes.
literally looks like the
Yes.
Queen of Sheba. Literally looks like Queen of Sheba. She's a very
She looks like she glides through.
yeah. Yes. She's a very, very philanthropic woman. She lives in the old city. She grew up completely not religious. She got married at an older age. She never had children. And if you see her candles, if you see what this woman lights every Shabbat, she lights for dozens and dozens and dozens of soldiers that she has taken on as her children. She's an incredible, incredible person, but she was standing next to this woman, and I saw this happening. She was standing next to this woman in the mirror, and she says this. She hears this woman from our trip say this negative comments about herself, and she says, well, how could you look in the mirror and say something like that to yourself? Do it again. Look back in the mirror and say something positive to yourself. That's you you're talking to, and you are created in the image of God. So this woman looks at me. She's like, did you hear what she just said to me? Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. When you're looking in the mirror, that's your reflection of your divine, right? Instead of looking at it and being so like, ugh, what we see, how about looking for what we are actually designed by and designed for? So that's like a side point, but that's exactly what this idea is saying, that we were created in the image of God with the traits that God has, that we have those traits as well. It's only because we are created in the image of God that we are able to appreciate all of these divine traits, because we have some of them, right? We say it takes one to know one. Well, here we go, right? We have it, so we know it. Okay, so here we're going to start with one very important piece, and these are going to kind of touch upon things that it's kind of a good summary for what we've done with Rav Dessler, because these are things that we've discussed with him, and now he's going to go through them and show the individual together with society, okay? So the attribute of chesed, you remember we discussed that? The whole idea of kindness. If there's one attribute which sums up all the aspects that are revealed to us by God's conduct of this world, it is that he is the bestower of bounty par excellence. That's the way that we were designed as well. God is kulo giving. He's an all giver. He exists as an all giver. We are also created as givers. What we learned is that sometimes we have to be takers in order to give. Sometimes taking is also giving, but at our essence, we are all giving. He gives existence and life to all his creatures. He showers upon them goodness of all kinds. The highest fulfillment of a human being is therefore to make himself resemble his creator in this, which is what? To shower goodness, not on ourselves, but upon others, okay? As you were all saying. Love of other people is the desire to make others happy. Doing acts of chesed in all its aspects and particulars means to bring happiness in practice to other people. This is the imitation of God, which the Torah calls attaching oneself to God. So remember, we also discussed the whole concept of dveikut, of attaching ourselves to God. How do we attach ourselves to God? By acting like God. How do we act like God? Well, here's one way: be a giver, right? And suddenly when you look at being a giver in this way, even the word joy, even the word happiness suddenly has a little bit of a different idea. Because now happiness doesn't mean that I'm feeling joy or that I'm feeling contentment or that I'm feeling happy. It has to do with, how is this pouring out to other people? How is my happiness affecting somebody else? Right? So of course they have to work together. Just as, and the rabbis actually say this line, this is a very famous line that I've said many times in this class: just as he is merciful, so are you to be merciful. Just as he is a giver, so are you supposed to be a giver. All of this is only possible by individualizing the human race, so that each individual feels himself to be a separate being who is not compelled by his nature to be a part of society, but nevertheless senses an obligation to be a part of society. I'm going to read that line one more time. All of this is possible only by individualizing the human, so that each individual feels himself to be a separate being who is not compelled by his nature to be a part of society, but nevertheless senses an obligation to be a part of society. Rachel, you said it so beautifully when you summed it up. In this way, it is open to everyone of his own free will to make of himself a giver. This is the challenge of particularity. On the other hand, if a person did not have deep in his heart a sense of belonging to society, then he would never be concerned with the welfare of others. So yeah, yin yang, like the two have to work together. I think the line that I loved here that I repeated so much is this line, so that because if we don't see ourselves as individuals and we only see ourselves as just like part of society, then really who are we? We're just like these little pawns that are just being dictated by society how to live our lives. And unfortunately, I do not think that it is an exaggeration to say that this is a pandemic that is hitting our generation. While we are so into individuality, we have forgotten who the individual is. You can have people who think we're so individual. really, if you're so individual, have you thought of yourself as an individual? Have you really thought of yourself as an individual? Or are you just trying to be a part of society? And I think that that's why this is such an important conversation to be had, because we become very wishy-washy and we sometimes forget our stance on things as an individual. What really is my individuality, and how do I work within the framework of society? There was a hand up
I
here.
was gonna say, like, I think that's like a middle-aged mom, but like, this is a crisis of our children's generation,
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah.
Right?
This
Like,
is-
you can't have an individual, I mean, I even see that with my friends, like, you want to do what everybody else is doing, you want to follow the trend, and I think that, I mean, I think that this has been a problem forever in society, but I think now where we have constant access to what everybody else is doing, like, the individual person is just almost lost
Yeah,
in it.
100%. And to add even more problems to what was already existing, I'm not saying that AI doesn't come with its own set of benefits. I'm not. And I'm not even, but we spoke last week about feeding our dreams right before we went to sleep.
I've had a dream every night since we had this.
Wow. Good dreams? Please tell me
Yeah,
good dreams.
like
You're like
neutral.
dreams. I don't know. They're just neutral. I don't know.
You planted the idea that I should remember my dreams in my head, but like I have remembered a dream every single night.
That's really bizarre.
Captions the video.
I know.
Captions the
I
last
know.
5 minutes.
Yes. You know what? I'll do it at the end of class, or if I don't do it during class, I'll fill you in. Or Jean can. But it is the month of dreams. It's the month of dreams. It's the month connected to miracles. So anyways, as I was putting away my phone last night, my mom sent out this email and I saw it pop up onto my screen, and it's titled like, "Every one of my children must read this article." I'm like, I'm supposed to go to sleep without reading this article right now. Anyways, it was a very long article about some opinions on AI, which wow, I needed to read right before I went to sleep. So I actually have been thinking since last night, I was dreaming about AI. So I just think like adding to what already was existing, now throw in the whole AI culture that this next generation is going to be raised in. And if you're thinking about an individual, where does this bring us, right? Like, where does this even lead us to? Hold on 1 second. Yeah.
I was just looking for this. I'm gonna send you this podcast that is amazing on this subject.
Amazing.
So you can send it
Okay.
out to everyone. It's with Barry Weiss and Jonathan.
Oh my God, Anxious Generation. It was fabulous.
I'm sure Farron heard it. Yeah, Anxious Generation. Yeah. Yes. And if you didn't read the book, I highly recommend. Yes. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
But listening to this whole thing, and now we're talking about the present, but when you go back to Adam and Eve even, and how they were individuals, but they influenced each other, and how they managed that Garden of Eden as a tiny group, a team.
Yeah.
And how they managed it individually.
Yeah. There is what to be said about that also. And obviously, we recognize right away from the creation of the world that obviously we're not supposed to be isolated human beings, because immediately as soon as Adam was alone, God said, "This is not going to work." Lo tov heyos adam levado. Like, mankind cannot be alone. So clearly, God recognized that we need a world filled of society, right?
Definitely not.
So, okay. So thank you. Yes.
I was gonna just add about the social media. like
Yeah.
the Social media influencers that are supposed to be like, they're influencing to be like part of this, of their group to be, to kind of meld into whatever they think is supposed to be like a cool thing.
And the content that they're putting
The
up.
content of.
Buy this, have this, like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, it's to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
But that's the imbalance of the two. So going back to the original, which is that you have to have the balance of the individual and society. Sorry, when they're not in balance, then you have problem. It can be a mental health issue where you forget about society and you're only concerned about yourself, or it could be the other way around where you're not taking care of yourself and you get the anxiety of everybody around you. So they have to be in balance in order to work to be a good human being. And so it could be because of social media, but it could be because of other things. You gotta put your base mask on before you.
Right. But I think that what we're really establishing over here is that there has to be the individual understanding. There has to be the wiring of who I am as an individual. first before we're even recognizing like I'm a part of society.
What's gonna
Yeah.
happen when we have a generation of kids who never got that, right? Like, what's gonna happen in 20 years? I mean, this may be getting too existential, but like,
Right.
we have kids like who never develop that sense of self or sense of identity because all they are attached to is, and their parents are attached to,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just our children's generation, it's the next one that hasn't even been born yet, who are influenced by parents who are so heavily influenced
Yeah.
by it.
Yeah. And I think about this often also, like just even in terms of like choices that we make or ways that we make decisions for our children, like to me, like anytime one of my children tells me like, well, everyone, I'm like, we are done. Like you have now lost your case. Anytime it starts with an everyone, I'm like, we can have this conversation. You can come back in 2 days and reframe your point if you want. But if it's because everyone, my answer is always going to be no. Like it will. And I really try to stick to my gun. Usually they're pretty good at coming up with another way to reframe it. So that works out. But they have to understand that they're not going to get it just because everyone. Like it has to be a mentality.
So interesting because the perspective now, you know what everyone is doing. So my family, like my best friend lived across the street, and my justification for everything was because she had.
Of course.
It's like, but Debbie Rice has it.
Yeah.
But we're not Debbie Rice's parents.
Yeah.
But now, like, it's overwhelming I can't even imagine growing up in a time where you just want your life to be like all of the beautiful pictures that you're seeing that everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
That's not even real.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Deborah,
Yes.
it starts with what you were saying earlier. It starts with the mirror
Yeah.
of being strong enough and accepting enough to look in the mirror and say, blinders, this is who I am.
Correct.
This is who I need to be. This is where I want to go, and funnel out some of the extraneous stuff so that you
Correct.
can really see what.
That's why I think the way that he frames the whole the whole topic as like, let's just paint this backdrop picture of the image of God, right? You want to answer where this is becoming so like it boils down to. It's like, how do you see yourself? That's really where it does start. So, okay. Any other thoughts about this? It's obviously, I mean, it's a very, also the intricacies of this are so great because we don't either want our kids to look like the oddball, even on a very physical level. Like we want our kids to be able to fit in, to look like they are, not different. So like that's even just in terms of the physical. The physical is like a small piece, right? There's like real fundamental thinking that we're talking about, right? Like the ideologies of the world that we're talking about. So it's a very, very vast topic. Like if we were to break it down, we would be here for many, many, many sessions. But just to think about like all the different parts that come into being an individual, there's a lot of different aspects to it.
Well, I'll add though,
Yeah.
speaking of Jonathan Haidt, and I
Yeah.
talked to you about generations, like studying the generations in America as a society used to be more in the physical world, more communal. So multi-generational families lived together, kids would go out and play in their neighborhoods. And so that actually gave the kids more confidence to develop as individuals, according to the social psychologists that study this stuff. Versus now we've moved more to an individual society where everyone can be in their own algorithm. And maybe it seems like everyone's doing something digitally. It might not be the case in the physical world. So that's a lot of like what these social psychologists are pointing to as the lack of individuality that you're pointing out is because they're not in the physical world. They're not surrounded by people they trust, people that inspire them, a coach, a teacher, a neighbor down the street. Instead, they're just in their phones and their algorithms, idolizing people around the world who might not even be real.
Who literally might not be real. Exactly.
So like the collective, it's like the collective action problem is what Jonathan Haidt calls it, and that he's trying to encourage parents to get their kids off phones, outside, playing with kids of different ages. Everything shouldn't be micromanaged and orchestrated. So it's that balance of like the individual versus society. And apparently we've really moved from that society focused, more communal living to more individual, and that everything's like, very specific to your person, but it ultimately results in a loss of individuality, I think is where we're kind of going with this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a mind bend.
Yeah.
Get your head around.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you that.
I think that point is so
I'm
true.
saying, I don't know how World War III gonna be, but the fourth one is gonna be with stick and stones. Somebody gonna pull the flag
Mm,
because it's crazy.
yeah.
You see people around the table, everybody's
Yeah.
playing with that.
Nobody's
talking.
It's so interesting. So for those of you who do listen to my husband's podcast, he just put out one with one of my favorite authors, Alan Marinis. His work. Well, we've studied his work. He's a master Musser, like a contemporary Musser master. He's written, I think, 4 or 5 books. I highly recommend them all. I will be bringing in his text into the Orchot Tzadikim, but he wrote something called Everyday Holiness. He wrote something called With Heart and Mind. And his newest book, which I actually haven't read it yet because I only have it on Kindle. I haven't read it yet, but it's a Musser approach of understanding Shabbat through a Musser lens. And the podcast that he does with my husband explains it. But just in terms of understanding, there's this huge push right now, even just the concept of being phone free for a 24-hour period in terms of what Shabbat represents is so powerful because it just pulls us off of this device that we are so stuck to. And he goes through the different things that we can learn on a daily lesson from what Shabbat has to offer us. And one of the words that I think he came up with, but he calls it enoughness. And he says that Shabbat is really the day that we just everything is just okay. Even if we are feeling this is really not enough, I really need that, even if in terms of an accomplishment that we're striving for, what still has to get done, what does Shabbos do? Shabbat tells us today it's enough. We're not focusing on this right now. We're hands off. And I was just thinking that concept of enoughness, it is so anti the world that we're living in. When do we ever say it's enough, just enough?
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating idea. But in terms of being able to get off of our devices for even just a 24-hour period is so healing for ourselves.
I just think this one that I was talking about.
If you put in Shlomo Buxbaum, it's the last one that he did with Alan Marinis. Yeah, it's
So,
excellent.
to that point, we're losing our third spaces. So people used to hang out at bowling alleys, roller skating rinks, arcades, pick up, basketball on the street, parks. It used to be safe to drive now, or I'm sorry, bike. It used to be safe to bike around your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Most neighborhoods now it's not.
But I think COVID made all of that.
I was going to say COVID made it worse. There are also some places in the world that are way better at this than others. So
Weather dependent.
also very weather dependent. True. Yeah. Okay, let's continue on with the next paragraph. This is all such good conversations. Okay, then he moves into, so that was in terms of chesed, in terms of kindness. Now he's speaking specifically about giving, okay? We've discussed this. There are many facets and levels of giving. There's giving on the material level, from giving a meal to a hungry person, to the honest conduct of public affairs. And it must be remembered that the material needs of the recipient are the spiritual needs of the giver, right? We said that before, right? When somebody needs something physically, that becomes, if I'm speaking to somebody, someone knocks at my door last night, right? They need something physical, that becomes my spiritual need every night, every night this week, right? That becomes my spiritual need. For last night. Then there is giving in the spiritual realm from the person who teaches and influences others for the good on the personal level, to the great man who can give leadership and guidance to his whole generation. There's another more abstract mode of giving in which the true servant of God can give existence and life to people who he has never even seen, and even to the whole world. How does this happen? So we have already discussed this, that the Gemara actually talks about this. He says specifically about very holy people. The one who's brought down specifically was Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. It's that the Gemara tells us that the whole world was a recipient of sustenance because of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, right? Because they were such great people that just their existence and how they operated their lives was able to pour over abundance into the rest of humanity. It's an unbelievable concept. There are many other examples that we find in the merit of holy people that can bring blessings onto a large number of people. So there again, you see that correlation between the two, okay? So now he's asking the question, how can one person's merit affect other people? Okay, back to the question of the individual versus the society. How does one person's merit, so let's say in this example, he lived a very long time ago, but a very holy man, Rabbi Hanina. How does his merit affect the whole society? So our sages have revealed this secret, and it's brought down in the work of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, in the book of Ecclesiastes. And he says the following. He says, the end of the matter, all having been heard, fear God, keep his commandments, for literally, this is all mankind. And the rabbis explain on this word that when it says the whole world, meaning all mankind, was created only for this one. That is, for this one who fears God and keeps his commandments, the whole world was created. Another explanation is the whole world was created merely as company for this one. Meaning, I remember that Lori Polanik on our trip said this whole story, and she met this lady, and the lady came over to her on the train, and she told her a story about how she impacted her life. And Lori looked at her and she said, the whole momentum movement would have been worth it just for you, right? That's what she said to this woman. This is the same idea. Like, God thinks of each individual and the worthiness of each individual so much that the whole thing was worth it just for the merit of that individual. And another explanation is that that individual spills over into the company of everybody else, and therefore all is uplifted through it. Okay? They work together. Yeah.
Isn't it then a balance?
Yeah.
Too?
Yeah, they work together. Exactly. Okay, so let me just continue this. So we see over here that a whole world can technically exist just to provide company, which is support and solace for the holy people. But there are two ways in which a person can really merit continued existence in this world. So this is getting into a little bit of a deeper idea. This is not going to be news to you if you've been studying in this class. One is by his own mitzvot, a person who has his own good deeds, whose fruits he can enjoy in this world, which means that one who does mitzvot receives, we discussed how whenever we have a mitzvah, the reward of a mitzvah is another mitzvah. So by one individual doing a mitzvah, his reward is that he gets that opportunity to do more mitzvot. But also, another way is by supplying the needs of someone who does mitzvot, by supplying their needs. In this way, he can be granted the means to continue living in this world in the merit of someone else's good deeds. Yet another way that one good deed affects another. So I do a good deed. It gives me the opportunity to do a good deed. Chances are that good deed will then have the spiritual effect on not only me by having the ability to do another good deed, but by somebody else around me. And if you remember, I started last week's class by stating one thing that I had just learned in Tanya, which is that when I set my intention, when I am doing something good and I recognize at that moment that my good deed is actually bringing up the entirety of the Jewish people, the whole energy is like off the charts. Do you understand? When you're doing something good, it's not just you in your isolated world. It's connecting you to the entirety of the Jewish people. You want to know how you want to feel more connected to the Jewish people? When you do something good, envision like stadiums full of people and the wave that's suddenly all feeling energized by your good action, right? This is actually what we're taught happens when we do something good. This is not like me in my own little world. This is like mega effect. This is energy. Energy is real. It makes a difference. Yeah. Did someone on Zoom have a question? Hold on one second. Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a quick thought. This reminds me of the two brothers. Is it Zebulun and Gad? Is that the two brothers where one of them?
Yisachar and Zebulun, yeah.
Okay.
It was a good guess. Very close.
Just making conversation. So where one of them was known to be studious and the other one was known to be able to fund his studies.
Yes.
And how each one is functioning in their own right, performing a mitzvah, but how they are interdependent on each other to be able to function.
Okay, good. That's also another point within. That's also very true. I'm
Mhm.
saying a bit of a different point, but it is worth noting. Yeah.
Okay.
Rene.
No, I was thinking when you were saying that they say when you do Tehillim, either on your own or with a group, like
Mhm.
in the war, we had a group on Shabbat, that every Shabbat afternoon they were saying Tehillim as a group of women.
So
And
nice.
that it's more powerful to get out in the world and get it heard for that reason.
Beautiful.
And also prayers, not just Tehillim.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm going to skip a little bit, and I just want to mention over here that it is worth mentioning that the also when we're talking about society at large, we're also talking about the other nations, the other parts of the world that are not even necessarily Jewish. When we think of ourselves, we think of individuals, we think of our Jewish, brothers and sisters, and then it continues, like it continues to spread, right? And obviously, if they're a part of this world, they're a part of this world. That again, like individual versus society, world. What is this supposed to be looking at?
The light unto the nation.
Okay, good. So that's the overarching theme that he's going to say. He describes it, I think he mentions it as helpers. But the whole idea over here is that we have a purpose. Again, going back to that idea of energy, we are supposed to be a light unto the nations. This is the month we focus so much on being the light. Yeah. We focus so much on the light. Like it's at the darkest time. It's the days are so short. It's so dark outside. It's dreary. It's literally highest level of depression now. And now we come and it's the month of Kislev. It's the month of Hanukkah. It's the month of light. So what is light, right? Well, lights usually have dimming, like there's like how high of a voltage are you at, or are you at your dimmest, or are you at your most bright? When we think of ourselves as an individual and then we connect it to the greater Jewish people, and then we connect that light into what's going on and spilling over into the non-Jewish nations, it's a reflection back on us. If we're the light onto the nations, then it's a reflection back on us. We are supposed to be that light. But if our light is very dim, like what do we expect of the nations? You understand the responsibility, ladies? It's a tremendous responsibility. So he's making that point over here, that even within that framework, it's so important to recognize the connection, okay? So we can see how a right to existence can be acquired even by those who have no conception of serving the Almighty, but are engaged merely in carrying out the world's work. This also explains the general purpose of the nations of the world, right? Apart from the possibility given to each individual non-Jew to raise himself up from the general level and to join the band of servants of the Almighty. Separate from the converts, their purpose is to build a world suitable for being lived in by those few human beings actively engaged in revealing God's glory. If they, the helpers, fulfill this purpose conscientiously and with the proper intentions, then they are called the Hasidim, the nations of the world who are the righteous ones, right? They have a portion in the world to come. They have freely chosen to help the process of the revelation of God's glory. But even those who have not reached this level may still have right to exist in this world, since they are needed to maintain the world, as we explained above. It may even happen that the entire country is so corrupt that their demerits far outweigh their merits, and from this viewpoint, they have forfeited all right to exist. Yet, they may have been kept in existence because they rear animals, which the world needs. We can learn this from the Midrash, in which the king of Cassia says to Alexander the Great, if you have rain and sunshine, it is not in your merit, it is in merit of the animals. So this is showing us that even within the framework of the other nations, in addition to our light, there also is a very important role that they play. Okay, so we're going to pause for today. If anybody has any specific questions or comments, I'm happy to take. And then maybe we'll just sum up. I'll spend a minute and just sum up last week's class real fast.
Just that last line that you said with
The animals?
I didn't know if I kept on it. What-
It's just saying that, and even if they're lowly, even if the other nations are looked at as lowly, that they could be compared to like animals, even the animals serve a purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question then. Is it okay to prioritize our Jewish community
Always.
first?
Always. We have to. You have to. That's actually a Jewish law. Have a great day, Felicia. I'm gonna stop. Oh, I'm not gonna stop recording.
And the second part.
Yes, you always have to prioritize. Family always comes first, and our Jewish family has to come first. Absolutely.
Perfect. And then the second part of that is if we are a mirror, a reflection of the light, if we give anonymously, and it's not even known that we are the ones giving, the Jewish community or an individual, is it less of a?
So it's a great question. So actually, and Rachel and I have studied this multiple times, there's actually levels of giving. And anonymous giving is actually the highest level, right? It's the highest level. So why, right? So, but there is that little caveat that the Rambam actually does make, that he says that if your giving will inspire other people to give, then you should consider that in part of your recognition. Meaning, if you feel that your name on a building is going to inspire others to give, then, and that's, by the way, why people will put their names on the building for the right reason. We discussed this within the framework of giving. But even when someone gives anonymously, remember, everything is energy. So if my giving, even done very quietly and anonymously, is done, the dimmer goes up. It becomes less dim. So you have on your own have to make that calculation. Like, that's a very personal thing. Like, will this actually inspire other people to give? If it will, then maybe I really will not do this anonymously, because it really will inspire other people to give.
Feel guilty.
But recognize that there is also tremendous value in that anonymity. Yeah.
Today is Giving Tuesday, by the way.
Yes.
Giving Tuesday. Tzedakah.
Or
Yes.
I'd just like to, first of all, my name is Janine, and this is my first time.
Welcome, Janine.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Devorah. You always inspire. And
You inspire.
in life.